Okay, I am going to get us started. So thank you everyone for signing up for our information seminar tonight. We're presenting from Brampton Flight Centre and AeroCourse, and we're going to give you some information about our professional flight training programs tonight. So I did just want to start off the meeting just letting everyone know that this meeting is being recorded and it will also be posted online. So I kindly ask that you keep yourself on mute unless you're asking a question, as well as just keep in mind we're posting online if you'd like to have your camera on or off. That being said, I also wanted to let everyone know that we will have a question and answer session at the ending of the presentation. So feel free to utilize the chat function for any questions during the presentation, or you can also wait till the end to ask your question verbally with the chat function. Okay, so that being said, let's get started. So like I said, Professional Pilot Information Seminar hosted by both Brampton Flight Centre and AeroCourse. So just to get into what we're going to be covering in this information session. So we're just going to give you some background about Brampton Flight Centre, as well as the aviation industry. We'll talk about what's called an introductory flight to help you get introduced to flight training, what requirements you need to start flight training, what flight training requirements there are in terms of licensing, and also some career opportunities. I'll then also hand it over to our AeroCourse team, who's going to talk about the professional flight training programs we offer, specifically our IATPL, our Integrated Airline Transport Pilot License Diploma Program. So just to give you an idea of who's on the call this evening, so we have Mohammed Nakuda, who is our Chief Flight Instructor at Brampton Flight Centre. We also have Kathy Stewart, who is the Manager of Flight Training Administration. You have myself, the campus administrator. I oversee the college and IATPL programs at Brampton. And we also have a previous IATPL graduate, Sean Boychuk, joining as well. From the Brampton Flight Centre side. And from our AeroCourse team, we have Rick Stevens, who's the founder and president of AeroCourse. And we also have Jessica Enke, the manager of advanced training for AeroCourse. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Kathy for why you should train with us.
Thank you, Sydney. Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We know you have options out there, so we appreciate your time in learning more about the Brampton Flight Centre. So we've been around for 79 years, and at any given time, we have at least 35 or more flight instructors on staff, and we're also very fortunate to have an in-house flight test examiner. Our fleet consists of 172s, and we have 2 multi-engine aircraft, which are the Piper Seminoles. On site, we've got our Redbird and AllSim, and then our IATPL students will have access to the Level D full motion sim at CAE for the last half of their program. We're an Ontario Career College. We also have some partnerships. We've got Jazz Airlines and Porter, and that again is something for our IATPL graduates. And most of our students who finish their training go on to major airlines worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. So I'm going to hand it over to Mohammed now, who's going to talk a little bit about the aviation industry, starting off with the introductory flight.
Good evening, everyone. Mohammed Nakuda from Brampton Flight Centre. I'm the CFI at the school. And just like to give you a quick shout out in the beginning when you start the flight training. We offer the introductory flight that will help you to confirm and see if you are good to be doing this flight training or not. It helps you to see if you are motion sick or air sick or not. Typically, the introductory flight is approximately 20 minutes. In this part, the flight instructor that will take you up will be able to hand over you the controls as well if the conditions are stable, and you will be able to feel and fly the plane a little bit as well. The cost of the introductory flight is approximately 175 plus tax, and this can be actually be scheduled from our website by clicking on the gift card icon on the Brampton Flight Centre homepage. When you do that, please make sure that you click on the checkbox that let us know that you are applying for the professional pilot program itself. The next thing after the introductory flight is basically the medical, aviation medical. There are a lot of aviation medical out there. Uh, we do not prefer one or the other. So easiest way to do the medical is by going online, searching for Canadian Civil Aviation Medical Examiner, KME, in your local area. And it's better to be able to set up the scheduled medical with them as soon as possible. Even though Transport Canada is staffed, they're still behind schedule, and it will take at least 6 to 8 months to be able to do the process of the medical. As a pilot, you are going to be in a program. We need a Category 1 medical, which will include the commercial license medical taken care of. So they're all physicians appointed by the Transport Canada.
Awesome, thank you. And yeah, just to emphasize Mohammed's point, we do require Category 1 medicals for all career training, so anything beyond just a private pilot license. So if you are interested in applying to any of the programs that we're going to be discussing tonight, you would need a Category 1 medical. So just a piece of advice for when you're applying.
Sydney, may I
Yeah,
interject for a second?
yeah.
Just on the medical, everyone, it's Rick Stevens. Welcome, everybody. I'll talk to you a little later on in the presentation. But it's a requirement to become a pilot, that a pilot has to be healthy and maintain certain standards. And pilots are required to take medicals either once a year or every 6 months, depending on your age. So this is the first step, and that's why it's highly recommended you do this right off the bat to make sure that you are a candidate to become a pilot once you get your medical. There isn't too many things that would disqualify anybody, but that's why we suggest that you get that medical right away.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, definitely. Thanks, Rick. Okay, and thank you, Mohammed. I'm going to hand it over to Sean now, who's going to talk about some commercial pilot licensing requirements and some pilot career opportunities.
Hi there. My name is Sean Wojciuk, and I just graduated the ATPL program in April of this year. Started in July of 2023, and went from knowing nothing other than planes go up to now knowing why they go up in about 20 months. So, pretty fast track program. The way that the licensing is set up is a kind of like I said, it's a typical progression. So you first start off with your private pilot. After that, um, on in about February or March, and then went right into the multi-engine training. And after that was the airline transit pilot licensing. So you can kind of think of it a little bit similar to getting your car license. Just because you want to have an airline transit pilot license doesn't mean you go right into studying the airline transit pilot license. It is a progression, and you have to have the first license to start with, and then you build on that, which is actually very helpful because it's a lot of information all at once. It's a very steep learning curve at the beginning, but luckily the laws of physics don't change as you learn more. As you work towards the higher end licensing. So it's a lot of building on your previous foundational knowledge. What's the next slide? Just gonna mute everybody there. I was getting some feedback. Okay, so can you press a few more times? There's got a bunch of other stuff coming up here. Perfect.
Sean, sorry, it's Jessica.
Yeah, hello.
I think for a few of us, you were cutting out on the last slide. Do you mind just going over it again so that just in case it was cutting out for others as well? Just want to make sure that everyone does hear about this licensing progression because it can be kind of confusing. So If you don't mind going
Sure.
over it one more time. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no worries. So basically what I was saying is it's very similar to getting your car license nowadays, where you don't just go right into getting your full G license. You have to start with a G1 and then you progress to a G2 over a certain amount of time. You have different restrictions for each license, and then you work up to your final one. So just because you might want to have an airline transit pilot license, it doesn't mean that you simply take an airline transit pilot license course only. Um, and then once you pass
I think
that,
Sean's having an internet connection problem.
you go on to, oh, can nobody hear me?
You just cut out a little bit at the end there, Sean.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay. So, am I good now?
You are good now,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so once you get your private pilot license, then you work towards your commercial license. You build on the foundational knowledge that you had, but as I was saying before, the laws of physics don't change as you work towards the different licensing. So it's not a terrible amount of new information. It's a lot of things that are repetitive, but that's also very helpful because it gives you a chance to solidify the things that maybe you didn't quite know initially in your mind. So it is a progression. You start off with a private and then you work your way, and the airline transit pilot license is the last one you have. And for myself and all of my classmates, it's now a frozen airline transit pilot license, which gives you about 5 years to meet the requirements, which are, I believe, hours, total hours you need piloting various things to sign it off.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. I will move on to the next section here, the pilot career opportunities. So Sean's again going to cover this. We're just going to go cover kind of a general overview of some kind of career opportunities you can have as a pilot, since a lot of people think, it's just the Air Canada, the Emirates captain, but there's lots of other opportunities and lots of ways to kind of build your hours to get to that end goal.
Bye.
Yeah. So there's quite a few different things that you can get into. There's flight instructor, which is the route that I've chosen to take. It gives you a lot of hours in a short period of time. So my ultimate goal would be to get to the airlines. And I started a little bit later on in life. I was in my 30s when I went into this venture as much as possible. But there are other opportunities as well. So you can work in the firefighting industry. You can work in air taxi. You can do aerial survey. So many different options that there are. So as a flight instructor, it provides you the opportunity to teach the next generation of pilots. So if you do have a knack for good explanations on things and good demonstrations and kind of guidance for people who have an awful lot of questions, this is definitely the job for you. And they say that there's no better way to learn something than there is to teach it. So this is one of the reasons why I also went into flight training. Is I've never flown or understood the things that I'm doing more than I have now as an actual teacher. Go to the next one. Air taxi operation. So this is any kind of aircraft or less for passengers. It does fly in smaller to rural communities. There's a lot of Northern Ontario, Northern Canada communities that are only reachable by air travel. They're kind of cut off, especially in the winter. So that's an option that you can do. Medevac evacuation. So yeah, a lot of those communities that don't have access to hospitals, the only way that they can get access is by being airlifted out. And there's quite a few guys from my past and in the different classes that I've taken who have gone and done that, especially in Alberta. Next one. So commuter operations, this is a slightly larger aircraft. So instead of 9 or less seats, we have 10 to 19. Doesn't quite meet the requirements to be a 705 operation, which is the airlines. But these also feed connecting passengers to mainline airlines. So if you live in a bit more of a rural area, you need to get to maybe Calgary or something to catch an airliner to go somewhere. This is what those work for. And I believe these also work for certain cargo type deliveries as well to these type of communities. Next one. Next is the regional airlines. So these ones are things that you would see, such as Air Canada Jazz, Porter, WestJet, and Encore. These are I feel like these are becoming more and more popular all the time. Billy Bishop Airport is incredibly busy. And I believe I just received an email from Porter saying that they hired roughly 300 pilots this year, and they expect to hire 300 pilots next year. So they are a growing airline, and same with Jazz as well. So definitely becoming more popular. And I think this is an airline that I'm going to pursue as well after I finish my instructor rating career. They fly like the Q800s and the Embraer jets as well. And then the last one here is the major airlines. So these ones would have the most hour requirements to qualify working for them. So the previous one that we just saw, which was Porter, they have an hour requirement of 1,000 total hours. If you're part of the Destination Porter program, you could get in at 500 hours and then have a sim evaluation at 750. But if you wanted to work for Air Canada, for example, I believe they're in and around 2,500 hours, total hours for requirements. So it's kind of like stepping stones in any pilot's career. If you want to work at Air Canada, you have to get the experience before they're going to hire you. Yeah, so Air Canada, I'm not sure what WestJet or Transat's requirements are, but these would be in Canada the top three major airlines that you could work at, and that's where you're going to start flying very long distances and internationally. Yeah, and arguably the most exciting part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sean, for sharing with us. I'm going to hand it over now to Kathy, who's going to talk a little bit about our flight training programs that Brampton Flight Centre offers, specifically our self-paced. And then I'm going to talk about, after Kathy, our college and our IATPL programs.
Okay, so for the Brampton Flight Centre, we do offer self-paced, and it's exactly how it sounds. It's at your own pace. So if you're working full-time or you have other outside commitments, maybe other education, and you can only train a specific amount of time per week, then this would be a really good fit for you. Lots of flexibility. We have 2 diploma programs, and we will be going into further detail in these programs in the advanced slides. We've got the IATPL, which Sean was able to share his experience with you about. That one's approximately 20 months. It's a diploma. And then the college program is 14 months, and that's a diploma as well. And then on our next slide, just a little bit more about the self-pay. So there is no application required like the diploma programs. So you can come in and register in person anytime. We do want you to have a medical. It's very important to ensure that there's nothing preventing you from pursuing this. As you know, we hope you've done some research. Aviation is expensive, We deliver all our ground school in person, and the license is offered, as you heard a little earlier. So you're going to start with your private pilot license. Maybe you want to just fly for fun. That would be a good option for you. If you're going to do this for a vocation, you'll still start with that. You'll go on to your commercial pilot license, and then you'll add a night rating, and then you have the option to do your multi-engine and instrument ratings. And let's see, the program length. So yes, again, this does vary on what sort of availability you do have. And unfortunately, it is not OSAP eligible.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. So I'm going to talk to you now about our professional diploma programs. So as Kathy mentioned, our self-paced program is a certificate program, whereas these two programs I'm going to cover, our IATPL and our college programs, are diploma programs. And we're able to issue diplomas because we are an Ontario Career College, and we have been for quite a while now. So the two professional programs that Brampton Flight Centre offers are our Integrated Airline Transport Pilot License, or our IATPL program, as well as our Professional Pilot Training, or our college program. So these programs run simultaneously, so college and IATPL students sit in the same classes. They do have different lengths. So the college program is 14 months, where the IATPL program is 20 months. They both start in July. We accept applications starting in January until about mid-March. And I'll talk a little bit more at the ending of the presentation about what the application process actually looks like. But both of these professional programs take students from having no experience, like Sean said, to being airline ready in less than 2 years. The college program wouldn't be necessarily airline ready. It's almost like an accelerated commercial pilot license program. So you do get all your commercial licenses, but you don't get access to this same advanced airline training that the IATPL program does. So a major perk of the IATPL program is the fact that you get to write your ATPL exams early as part of the program at only 200 hours of experience versus only being able to write them at a 750 hours of experience for any non-integrated program students. So Rick and Jess will probably talk more about the SAMRA and SARON, the ATPL exams later on in the presentation. But I just wanted to highlight that that's a major perk of the IATPL program is the fact you get to write these exams early. And just comparing these programs further, so both programs you would graduate with your private license, your commercial license, your night rating, your multi-engine rating, and your instrument ratings. However, the IATPL program graduates get this distinction of having a frozen ATPL, which means you've written the airline exams, but you don't have the 1,500 hours of flight training experience to get your airline license signed off. So essentially, you'd graduate with all your exams being written, and all you need to do once you graduate is build up those hours of experience to get your your ATPL signed off. So instruction in the program is very comprehensive. So each program includes a minimum of 200 hours of flight training. And again, that's a combination of both dual instruction training with a flight instructor, as well as a lot of solo training. So being the pilot in command and flying by yourself. There's also over 500 hours of ground instruction for both the college and IATPL programs. So that includes private pilot license, commercial pilot license, instrument rating ground school. We also offer a lot of advanced training courses, such as career preparation, a lot of things that you would need to know if you plan to be a professional pilot. So it's very comprehensive training that you get through both of these programs. However, what sets the IATPL program apart is the fact you get an additional 250 hours plus of ground school instruction that's preparing IATPL grads for a career in the airline specifically. So like I said earlier, you're going to write those ATPL exams, those SAMRA and SARON exams for a career in the airlines early. And you're also going to do the really exciting part of the program, which is the multi-crew cooperation training. So you actually get to get experience and training in the same simulators that the airlines use to both hire their pilots as well as retrain their pilots annually. So that's a very exciting part of the IATPL program. It's what IATPL students work so hard for, is to really get that benefit and that really fun experience, honestly, of being in the same simulators that the airlines use. Again, like I said, I'll talk about the application process a little bit further on into the presentation, but we're going to begin accepting applications January 2nd of 2026, so just in the new year, and we'll accept them until March 15th, and that would be to start the program in July. And like I said, graduates are technically qualified to work for the airlines upon graduating this program. Like Sean said, most students will need to build their hours of experience before getting a career in the airlines. So something like Sean said, as a flight instructor, as a bush pilot, medevac pilot, there's lots of opportunities to build those hours of experience before getting to the airlines. But the training you're getting in the IATPL program is preparing you for that career in the airlines. And some of the advanced ground school that the programs offer. So we do a lot of industry tours. So we've gotten to go to Nav Canada, which is all of the control towers. So we've gone to London. We've actually gotten to go to the Pearson Control Tower, which was a really exciting tour. We tour Air Canada's dispatch center, so we get to see behind the curtain, see the kind of on the ground operation that allows all of these commercial flights to take place. We also do a tour at Chartwright, which is a business aviation, so private jets mainly. That's a very exciting career opportunity as well. We also love to do our porter tour, so we get to go down to Billy Bishop and see what the life of a porter pilot is really like. We also, like I said, do our instrument rating ground school. So your instrument rating allows you to fly with no visual references outside of the aircraft. So you're flying purely based on your flight instrumentation in the aircraft. So that's a very important part of a professional pilot's career. And that's an intensive program that AeroCourse offers with us at Brampton Flight Centre for both these programs. We also have some career classes, so preparing for the industry, resume and mock interviews, doing a lot of resume development, and you participate in basically, we pretend that you're applying for an airline and we give you feedback on both your resume and how your interview skills are. That's when the college program kind of graduates and where the IATPL program gets into the advanced airline ground school, which is those two major SAMRA and SARON exams, those major airline exams that IATPL students are writing early, as well as I was saying, the multi-crew cooperation training, which again includes that airline simulator experience that really helps our IATPL graduates stand out when it comes time for applying for the airlines. And just to compare and equate both the IATPL and college programs, something that really helps our program stand out from so many other professional flight training programs is you actually start flight training on the first day of programs. So you're booked for flights 6 days a week, starting on the first day of the program. So in some other programs, you have to pass through a semester or a year of academic classes before you have access to the aircraft. But in our program, you actually get aircraft access on the first day of the program. So we really want to get you into the plane, working on your licenses as soon as you're starting the program. We start in July, so we're trying to take advantage of the best weather months that you have for flight training, which are obviously the summer months when the weather allows. So that's a really exciting part of our programs. So a typical day for an IATPL or a college student would be a flight sometime in the morning, whether it's dual with your instructor or later on in the program, a solo flight by yourself. And these again are scheduled in advance by myself. And we do recommend studying between ground school classes and flight training. So like I said, your flight would be sometime in the morning. You'll have some time to maybe have lunch, get a quick bite to eat, maybe do some studying before your ground school class starts in the afternoon. Like I said previously, there is flights booked 6 days a week. We do allow students to book a seventh day as well, if they're so inclined. And this is just to accommodate for any poor weather. So we really want our students to have access to the aircraft whenever the weather permits. So especially in these winter months, it's difficult to get a flight in just with all the weather limitations. So we want our students to have access to an aircraft whenever the weather does allow for a flight to get completed. Ground school is usually scheduled 5 times a week. This does depend on what portion of the program you're in. Some days will be shorter ground school classes and more frequent, whereas other days you'll have maybe a longer day of ground school classes, up to 6-8 hours even potentially. And that would be less frequent classes, maybe only a few times a week. But again, longer days of classes. And I just want to emphasize this is a very intensive program. They do require full-time commitment. We don't recommend usually students in these programs have a part-time job. And that's just due to the frequency of flying, the frequency of ground school, and kind of the level of commitment it takes to, do all the groundwork, do all the studying that's required to be successful in these programs. Okay, so now that I've given you kind of the background of the IATPL and the college programs, how they kind of compare, Rick and Jess are going to talk a little bit more about the IATPL program specifically and where AeroCourse fits into this whole equation.
Hello, everyone. There's been a ton of information that we've given to you so far. I'm just going to open up my presentation here to make it full screen. It's trying. We haven't got it there yet, have we, Sydney?
No, not full screen yet.
Okay, hold on. There we go. Let's try this now. There we go. There.
Perfect.
We got there. Little technical glitch. First of all, does anyone have any questions before we launch into this? I know we've given you a ton of information right off the bat, but to suffice to say that there's many paths to get to the airline level as far as not just training, but then how to get there to build up hours. So depending on what level of flying you are applying for, what airline or what type of operation you want to fly to, many of them require a certain number of hours. So that's why it's so complicated, and we're trying to give you as much information as we can. And we can circle back to some questions afterwards, but let's just tell you about the Integrated Airline Transport Pilot License. As Sean mentioned, the Airline Transport Pilot License is the highest level license that you can attain to fly a large aircraft, actually to be a captain on the large aircraft. So all the major airlines, which is, as we said, WestJet, Flair, Air Transat, Air Canada, Jazz, those larger airlines require for a captain to operate, to be a captain in those airlines, you have to get this airline transport pilot license. So that's the first thing. So going forward, we're going to point out how you can do this and why we've introduced this airline transport pilot license, or we said the integrated airline transport pilot license. So AeroCourse has been around for 37 years. We're a ground school company, and predominantly ground school, although we're doing simulator training as well. But myself, I'm a retired Air Canada captain. I was a training captain on the 330 when I retired, and Jessica, who's going to talk to you in a few minutes, she's a captain on the 767 at Air Canada right now. And then we have Francis, who's he's out flying right now. He's a captain at WestJet and was a training captain for Sunwing before they merged. So that's our background. We specialize in ground schools and developing programs for flight schools to give them the best quality ground school instruction that they can have. So that's what we are. We've been, as I said, in business for 37 years. We're leaders in the advanced aviation ground school training companies. We've always done the advanced level stuff. We've conducted thousands of hours or thousands of ground school seminars for thousands and thousands of pilots. Our instructors are highly experienced professional pilots. And that's what sets us apart and this program apart, because you're actually getting trained by pilots that actually train pilots for airlines. So that's what we really specialize in. As I said, I'm a retired now. I've been retired for 3 years. And our mission is to provide students with the required knowledge to become a safety-oriented professional pilot. And that's what this is all about. The airlines, as you can well imagine, is safety, safety, safety. And how do we make pilots as safe as they can be? And that's what we've brought into this program. 10 years ago, we decided to form a partnership with Brampton. We're building on the success of the Brampton Flight College's excellent training program. So we partnered to create this joint training program to provide an integrated airline transport pilot license. And what's important is that license wasn't around more than 10 years ago. It's just a new development. And the rationale was behind it is Transport Canada, the regulator of everything to do with flying, identified that we were falling behind on some of the theory that pilots require to be successful and be safe. So that's why they introduced this program. And we've developed it based on not only Transport Canada standards, we've gone way beyond their standards to make sure that we train pilots for what the airlines require. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. It's a very structured program, meaning there's set lesson plans. And not all flight schools do that. It's so important to have a set license plan, and that's the way the airlines do it. It's a very structured set license plan. You do all these exercises in your training, and then you're required to take a flight test. As I guess Sean and didn't mention it, but at every level of those licenses that he listed and talked about, you have to do a flight test. So it's complicated. We don't want to get into it, but that's basically what you need to know. So it's structured, intensive program, takes students from 0 flight hours to airline ready. BFC provides, or Brampton provides, the basic flight training, we call it, ab initio training, and that takes includes the private pilot's license, the commercial pilot license, the multi-engine and instrument rating. And the multi-engine is so that you can fly an airplane with 2 engines on it. And I'm sure most of you have seen aircraft that have 2, maybe 3, or even 4 engines on it. Once this is completed, then we provide the advanced training for the IATPL program. The only exception to that is that it's our instructors that do the instrument rating. That's after you've completed the commercial and the multi-engine rating. And we do that because we have the experience of flying in instrument conditions, as Sydney pointed out. So this is the reason why Transport Canada developed the integrated training program. So on this side, on the left side of the bridge there, you have the initial flight training, which is private, commercial, multi-engine IFR, and that's done traditionally in small aircraft. On the other side, the bridge is airline pilot training, which is airline operations, the advanced airline operations scenarios, advanced aircraft systems, which are exceedingly complex, environmental, and that's aircraft systems in large aircraft, environmental operations, what we call environmental hazards, thunderstorms, freezing rain, all those things, hurricanes, tornadoes. We teach all about that and how to avoid those hazardous situations. Then there's the simulator training, and this is all done in large aircraft. So what Transport Canada identified was this training gap. And the integrated ATPL was to bridge that training gap. That's what the whole point of this whole integrated airline transport pilot license is to give the graduate pilot from the initial flight training enough knowledge so that they can seamlessly join in and excel in the training at the airline that they're applying to. As a matter of fact, I was just at a conference last week in Montreal, and we had the director of training for Porter Airlines and the director of flight operations for Perimeter Airlines, which is a fairly large, what we call a medium carrier, regional carrier. And part of this presentation, they were telling the participants that they've had to develop training courses for pilots that are coming to them that would normally be considered stuff that they never had to teach before. The candidates that they were hiring lacked the basic knowledge. And when I was talking to my colleague that joined me there, Robert Appolito, he's a 787 first officer for Air Canada in Montreal. We were astounded to hear that, because that's exactly what we teach, so that the airlines didn't have to add some basic training to their program, which costs them money. So that was the big thing with regards to what we heard at this convention. Graduates significantly outperform their colleagues on initial airline courses. And what we mean by that is when they get hired at the airline, they have to go through a very structured training course that can take up to 3 months or more. So the IATPL graduates that from the schools that provide an excellent IATPL program outperform, meaning they don't require extra training. They excel in the training. They know what they have to do to study, to prepare themselves for the training and the simulator training. So that's the important thing here. So it outperforms their colleagues. And transport, they track all this based on the flight tests that these students or graduates were doing at the airline, and they can tell the ones that had required that didn't pass their flight tests and had to do more training. And then, so this is what transport gave us, and it was astounding to see that. Again, this came from that conference we went to. Experiencing quality issues within the national carrier perspective. Cadet programs do very well, and ours is considered to be a cadet, somewhat of a cadet program. And that's a little complicated, but basically we train pilots that they can go right to the airlines, and we have had success with getting pilots right into the major airlines. Now, multi-IFR, the modular multi-IFR, non-cadet load time do not do as well. And then the basic flight training unit or flight school CPL regional operator experience off the street is they need. So I didn't really explain that to you. If you look at the cadet program up in here, it's 250 hours and you go to the airlines. When you have a non-cadet low time, it's about 1,500 hours to get hired. And then off the street program, which is between 1,500 and 3,000 hours. Jess, where did you get this from? I can't recall. Do you remember?
Yep, this was from a previous ATAC conference.
Okay.
So the conference that Rick attended last week, this came from that same conference. I think it was last year.
Yeah. Was that was this out of transport, or is that, you remember the original thing? Any event,
Yes.
I think you're getting the idea, and I'm not trying to hard sell it, just telling you the reality behind it. And what we're finding now is the airlines are really looking for candidates that have had the integrated ATPL program, just because they're better prepared. And that's really where I think the whole future is going in the airlines. If the airlines demand that, that's what they're going to look for. It doesn't mean that if you went through the college or had a self-pace, you wouldn't get there. It's just going to take a lot longer to get there, because you're going to have to get more hours of experience before the airlines would consider you, if that kind of makes sense. Okay, now I've been long-winded. Let's get on to the components of the effective flight crew performance. So this is based on the original name of cockpit resource management, which is now considered crew resource management. We call this the Swiss cheese model. So what we teach is airline operational procedures, advanced aircraft systems, so the students have a really good understanding of how the aircraft systems work, crew procedures, standard operating procedures, and checklists. How important it is to follow the standard operating procedures and operate the checklists. Then we have multi-crew cockpit resource management or crew resource management skills and personal proficiency. These are the major components of what we call the layers of safety. So candidates will graduate with an integrated ATPL license, advanced airline operational knowledge, and multi-crew cooperation, MCC skills. And that's a major component, meaning what that is that the crews learn how to operate with two crew in a very sophisticated simulator. And you're going to see a little later on, we're going to show you a couple of videos. One, an actual airline crew, which was a flight that I did out of Calgary going to Tokyo. And then we're going to compare that to two of our recent grads, and you'd be amazed just how close they are to the one that of me and my first officer and relief pilot that we did. So in any event, the advanced portion of the program consists of two phases. The airline flight operations and air transport pilot license ground school training, which is broken into two phases. And then last one is the multi-crew cooperation training, which is the ones that many students have the most fun and are most work the hardest, right, Sean? You love that. I think you told me once. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, and because it's real life. You're flying in a simulator that the airline pilots train in. So, um, and it's impressive to watch just how good these young candidates are. And I know from Sean how good he did in the program. It provides greater safety standards for young pilots through higher learning, flight operations procedures, aircraft systems for large aircraft, advanced communications, and environmental factors that we talked about. Let's see, what do we have here? Airline operations and ATPL ground school. It's 31 days, 220 hours of ground school. 2 Transport Canada written exams, which then when you write the exams, we said frozen ATPL. What that means is they're frozen for 5 years to get your hours. So traditionally, as Sydney said, you couldn't write them until you had 750 hours, and then within 2 years, you had to get to 1,500 hours to become to get the license. You have to have 1,500 flight hours. So now you can write the exams when you're fresh. All that knowledge is in your, you've just gone through it to write the exams, and then they're frozen until 5 years or earlier when you get your 1,500 hours. We cover things just like this flow chart. This is a flow chart for runway contamination as to whether we can take off or land or not. That's what this whole thing was designed for. It's even become more sophisticated than this in recent years. Then we go into air carrier procedures and Canadian air regulations. And then we do advanced communications, navigation, and auto flight, which is exceedingly complicated now compared to when I started flying. You learn how to program all the computers in the aircraft, and that's huge because when you show up to the airline, and even the mid-size airlines, they all have what we call flight management system, FMS, and you know how to program them already. You're leg up over everybody else. Modern aircraft avionics, including flight management systems and warning systems. We get into environmental factors, advanced meteorology, high-level flight operations in hazardous conditions, advanced theory of flight, flight hazards, and then aircraft systems. Just every part of that aircraft, we give you the basic knowledge so that you can understand when they're teaching you about the aircraft systems for the specific aircraft you're taking or going training for, you have the basic understanding. So when you show up, you understand the terms and you understand basically how they operate. You're just learning how they operate on that specific aircraft. Phase 2, it's a multi-crew coordination training, intensive preparatory classroom instruction, 16 days, practical training, 8 days plus observation sessions. It's conducted in using state-of-the-art simulator technology, which is done at this year is the vast majority is done at CAE. It teaches trainees to operate as co-pilots in complex multi-engine and multi-crew aircraft, teaches trainees cockpit resource management, which is exceedingly important. The syllabus of phase 2. So what, if you see this graph, it's just a real quick little graph in here, but it basically shows you the flight hours. So departures and flight hours in 1970, which was very low down in here, and you see how it's gone. And this is from 2014. It's getting even higher. The growth in aviation air travel is just huge, exponentially. And there's a number of reasons for that. But basically, all our generations and started with me, I won't take the bus. I fly because that's what I grew up with. And what they found over the years, so the blue line is technical factors. If you look at the causes of accidents from the early time when aircraft got built, the failures in aircraft that causes accidents have gone significantly down over the years, and it keeps getting lower and lower. Now, if you look at the human factors that causes accidents, that it's been going up over the years. even though the accident rate itself has gone way down, we can still do better with the human factors. And that's what this whole program is all about. Human factors. Human make errors, without a shadow of a doubt. All humans. And when we first started this cockpit resource management, it was just to do with the cockpit crew, the captain, the first officer, and the second officer. And now they've expanded that because there's so much more to this. So human factors is really, really important. And that's the whole important part of this integrated ATPL, integrating the human factors with the technical side so that the graduate is well aware of how important it is for safety. And one of the things that we've really started to implement over the last few years is examples of situations that pilots have gotten into. And my personal belief, if there's an error made by a pilot, is because of lack of training. They just didn't know. We didn't pass on enough of our experience to them to recognize a situation. And so I don't think there's anything called human pilot error. It's humans make errors, but it's because of a number of other factors, and that's what we try to do. It's because it's all about safety, and that is my motto, and all my everyone who works for me. That is by far what we teach. So, as we said, accident causes. Interesting enough, the overall training model has traditionally been technical issues at 16%. So accident causes at 16%, non-technical issues is 84%. So those human factors and other things associated with it, not associated with pilots, all of it. Sometimes it's organizational issues. There's a whole bunch of things into it. But if you look at the training traditionally, we teach 98% technical items and only 2% of non-technical items. So that's what this integrated program is trying to address, give enough information. And the airlines are doing the same thing. And as well as the regulators are starting to realize, wait, maybe we put too much emphasis on the technical issues. It's not that they're going to stop. They're just going to interweave that human factors into the technical issues and then have everyone make a much safer operation for aviation. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jess, and she's going to continue on and talk about that advanced level course because this is hers. She's put her heart and soul into that with Francis to develop this program. So it's all you, Jess.
All right. Hi again, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. So I'm going to take you through the course syllabus for phase 2 and talk to you a little bit more about the rest of the program. So if we click through a little bit here, we're going to take a little bit more of a detailed look at the course syllabus. So the first portion of phase 2, which as Rick mentioned is the multi-crew coordination training, will focus on a review of aviation psychology as well as crew resource management, which you've already heard a couple times in this presentation. And you'll continue to hear it again and again, especially if you decide to go forward with a career in aviation. So CRM, or crew resource management, means effectively using all of our available resources. And we have lots of them as pilots. We have the other pilot beside us. We have ATC, or air traffic control, ground personnel, flight attendants, all sorts of other resources that we can use. So using all of those resources to assure a safe and efficient operation. And of course, as you can imagine, it's a huge part of our daily life as an airline pilot. So we address these training items in class, of course, over and over, but we also continue to address them again and again as students progress through to the simulator phase of the training program. And then after that is done, we begin our 737 or Boeing 737 ground school course. That's about 42 hours. Consists of Boeing 737 systems ground school, avionics, and flight management systems. So this was the computer that Rick mentioned, the FMS, or flight management system. That is a component of all modern aircraft. And again, as he mentioned, the students that go through this program, they have a huge leg up on other pilots in their first airline ground school, because they're already well versed in programming this flight management system. So that's a really, really big strength to have. And then we also look at in-depth standard operating procedures, or SOPs, which Rick also mentioned prior as one of the layers of safety, briefings, and pre-simulator practice based on those airline procedures. So once the ground school is complete, the students will move into the simulator portion of the training. So again, probably the most fun, but also, sorry, was there a question? Oh, maybe we just had some feedback. Okay, so we'll continue. Yes, so as we were saying, and as Sean validated for us, the most fun part of the program, but also requires a lot of hard work to make the most of it. And this is the part that gives our students the biggest advantage over students in other programs, or people coming from off the street, as we said, without this type of training. So this 737 simulator training includes 8 4-hour sessions for a total of 32 hours. That's 2 2-hour flight legs per session, plus instructor briefings. We do a 1.5-hour pre-flight briefing, as well as a half-an-hour debrief at the end of the session to let students know what they did well and what they can improve on for the next session. So again, we want students to get the absolute most out of every minute of this flight training. So those briefings are really important for that. We use the most advanced flight simulation technology, and simulator sessions are scenario based. And so we call this in the airline world line-oriented flight training, or LOFT. And it's a really effective and realistic style of training that is used at the airline level. And essentially it follows a flight from A to B, so departure to destination, so that you're kind of seeing things in real time. And we'll throw in different scenarios, different types of emergencies in that time, again, for extra practice and seeing different types of procedures. And that full flight simulator, you can see here, as well as a flight training device. Flight training device is on the top photo, and the full flight simulator is pictured here. So each LOFT session that I just mentioned is scripted as an actual flight in real time between 2 airports. 4 of the sessions are conducted in an advanced Boeing 737 flight training device, again, pictured at the top. And 4 of the sessions are in the Boeing 737 flight simulator. And so again, this is a full flight simulator. It's incredibly realistic. These are the exact same multi-million-dollar full motion machines that airlines use to train their pilots. And the BFC IATPL program is the only one in Canada to use these top-level simulators. So it's quite special for our students to be in the exact same type of simulator that we use at the airline level. Students are also required on top of these sessions to attend observation sessions, and we do this in order to give them the most exposure possible to the procedures. All right, so in this slide, you can just see an example of some of the scripts, and that's what we call kind of the outline that is used for each session, and some of the documents that are used in the 737 syllabus. So the first one that you saw there gives briefing points, so it shows you what all the different procedures that are going to be gone through in the session, gives the students an idea of what to study. The second center photo is an example of a weight and balance sheet. It's something that the students would have to fill in for every flight, and also something that's done at the airline level. And then the third is an example of the actual script that the instructor would use to guide the students through the session. So our next slide, we're going to talk about some of the program highlights. So the Integrated Airline Transport Pilot License, or IATPL diploma program, allows students to write those 2 ATPL exams that we talked about earlier as part of the program. And so they automatically obtain Transport Canada's Airline Transport Pilot License accreditation upon completion of the regulatory flight hour requirements. And so we talked a little bit about that earlier. That's 1,500 hours, and we call this a frozen ATPL. As we mentioned earlier, outside of the IATPL program, exams can't be written until the candidate has at least 750 hours of experience. So our students in the IATPL program are writing quite a lot earlier at 250 hours. And having those exams written allows the students that graduate to be a co-pilot on a multi-crew aircraft right after finishing the program. So this is also really special. This is what allows them to go to be airline ready and go straight to the airlines. After completion of the program, candidates have 5 years, I think Sean mentioned this as well, to acquire the necessary flight hours, that's that 1,500 hours, to actually have that ATPL license stamped off by Transport Canada. Okay, so after those hours are acquired, it goes from being a frozen ATPL with just the exams written to you actually holding that license. It's not a frozen ATPL anymore. It's just the actual airline transport pilot license. Other program highlights, we teach advanced subjects that aren't taught in other programs like advanced navigation systems, flight management systems, that's that FMS computer that we've mentioned now a couple times. How to use airborne weather radar. That's something, a skill that's really important, but that isn't taught in other programs. And once again, our favorite phrase, crew resource management or CRM skills. Additionally, students gain credentials and skills that are sought after by the big airlines, like multi-crew cooperation skills, leadership and managerial skills, situational awareness, huge for pilots, decision-making and risk management skills, and again, these CRM or crew resource management skills. We provide a solid experience for employment interviews because of the practice that students get doing interviews with us and getting resume feedback from us, from actual airline pilots. They have the confidence and experience for simulator evaluations, and they also have a good knowledge of airline policies and procedures. So again, that training gap is bridged, and our students can go into their first course at an airline with confidence and successfully complete it without any issues. And that's what airlines want to see. All right, and of course, our instructors, Rick talked a little bit about our instructors, but all AeroCourse instructors are highly qualified instructors as well as airline pilots with thousands of hours of flight experience. This is quite unique to the ATPL or IATPL program. It means that we not only have a wealth of real world experience to pass on to our students, but also that we know what the airlines are actually looking for right now. We are in it and able to pass on that knowledge. Our instructors, obviously, with that experience, are able to pass it on. They are simulator and ground school instructors, training and check pilots, and flight operations managers that are coming in to teach these courses. I think this was mentioned back at the beginning, but just want to point out again that we are recognized under the Ontario Private Career Colleges Act. The course length is about 20 months. The ground school hours total approximately 800 hours. So as Rick mentioned, we go well above and beyond what Transport Canada requires with becoming a safety-minded pilot at the end of this. That's what we have in mind, and that's where a lot of those hours go. That includes over 250 hours of advanced ground school, and the students are eligible to write those 2 Transport Canada ATPL exams in the program, qualifying for a frozen ATPL. You get 36 hours of experience in an advanced simulator as part of the program, experience in a multi-crew environment. And as Rick mentioned, the flight training is highly structured into 7 different flying phases. Okay, and that's as per Transport Canada as well. So now that we've covered the program syllabus and the highlights, let's circle back to the components of effective flight crew performance that Rick mentioned earlier. He had introduced that. We can, as he said, look at the components in the form of what's called the Swiss cheese risk analysis model. So in this model, we have threats like, for example, changing weather conditions or technical issues. And those threats are mitigated using various layers of defense. And those are the components like airline operational procedures, aircraft systems, and CRM that form the basis of the course. In this model, they're likened to pieces of Swiss cheese. You can see the little holes. And the holes in the cheese represent deficiencies in the layers of defense. And so when they line up, it could lead to an incident. Okay. Therefore, the more knowledge that students have in all of these subjects, the more we can fill that training gap that we talked about earlier, and the more layers of defense they have to deal with those threats effectively. Okay. And so that's what we see here. In this example, the person's multi-crew and CRM skills have deflected the threat that was coming. And that's what we want. So a graduate of our program put it best when he said that it gave him the knowledge and ability to make better decisions. And that is truly our goal here. Safety-minded pilots make better decisions. So Rick touched on this earlier to illustrate just how much skill it's actually come out of the program with. I'd like to show you now a couple of videos. So as Rick said, this first one is of him taking a flight from Calgary to Tokyo with a 3-person crew. So you'll notice he's in the Boeing 767. You'll hear the various standard calls that the pilots are making when flying a commercial level aircraft. So take note of those calls, take note of the flow of how things are going, the procedural things that are happening, and then we're going to compare that to another video of our students afterwards.
Just so everyone knows, this was September 17th in Calgary a few years ago, and it was snowing, which was unexpected. Did everyone hear the sound?
Rick, I don't think the sound is shared.
Goodness. Okay, hold on. Oh, give me a second, gang. My bad. Okay. There we go. My full screen, Sydney?
Yeah, it's large enough.
Okay,
Just see
here we
the-
go.
Yep.
You might just have to start it again.
The release reflect 59.2.
You want me to start it again?
Release
Yes?
form.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, I think it started a little farther in where we were before. So if we start at the beginning.
I need some, there we go. Okay. It's gonna be V1161, VR164, V2169. We're LNAVing up to 7,000 feet. No turns below 3,600. We lose the edge, and at 9 DME, we're going to go 330 up to 5,400 feet.
Roger that. Clear to line up only. Clear right.
Clear left. Right? The run up?
60%. Yep. This is a release to reflect 59.2. We have release for.
Excellent. Thank you. Just going to hold the brakes manually. Okay, all set.
All set.
Right to let them know we're ready to go.
Canada 009, ready to go to the tarmac. (24.5) to the aircraft, takeoff runway 35 left, Air Canada 009. Trust set. 80. Right.
Climb thrust, command center. N1, VNAV speed.
Roger. Purchase Windsor, Canada 009, 5.2.
Okay, so now you've seen a commercial airline crew, a professional airline crew with a lot of experience at work. And now we're going to watch a video of some of our previous graduates on their last simulator session of the course. And you'll notice their calls aren't exactly the same because it's a different aircraft and airline, but you'll see similarities, and you'll also see how much they've learned about operating a complex two-crew aircraft. You'll see a ton of similarities between the two videos. We'll start with that.
Sydney, why don't you play that video, because I don't have the link.
Okay,
There we
as
go.
Jessica was saying, this is some IATPL students in the CAE simulator.
We'll be doing class 5 and 1 of 94.9%. We're doing the Thunder Bay 1 departure, so altitude 4,000, and then engine out. We'll be climbing to cleanup speed 1660 and climb to 4,000 and assessing from there. Any questions, comments, concerns?
No, I'm on that. Let's go before takeoff checklist.
Before takeoff checklist, flaps.
5 green Sunwing 222, clear to line up and wait, runway 07.
Sunwing 222, cleared to line up and wait 07. Okay, I'm going to take train.
Okay, I have weather. Thank you. Sunwing 222, winds are 04010. You can contact departure once you're airborne on 109.2. Clear for takeoff, runway 07.
Clear for takeoff 07, contact departure 119.2, Sunwing 222.
And you have control.
I have control. And takeoff.
Runway 07 verified.
And one photo.
Press set. knots.
V1.
Rotate. Pause and brake.
You're up. Come on.
Check.
Yeah, speed.
Departure Sunwing 222 with you 1,400, climbing 4,000. Sunwing 222, ready to dispatch. Continue climb 7,000 feet for Sunwing 222. 7,000, Sunwing 222.
And one.
And 7,000 feet.
Yeah, Bravo. Last one. 7,000 set.
Check.
Pause up.
All right. So even though the aircraft and procedures aren't exactly the same, as I mentioned, comparing the two videos shows a really impressive level of proficiency from our students over a relatively short amount of time. As we mentioned, it's a 20-month program, right? So 0 hours and 0 aviation knowledge to airline ready at this level of proficiency in 20 months. It's very impressive, and it's what airlines are looking for, because airlines don't want to pay to train pilots more than they have to. They want pilots to come in ready at this level. Super, super impressive. So as we wrap up, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the future demand for pilots. We're going to look at worldwide demand here. This is based on the CAE pilot demand outlook from 2020. So obviously COVID-19 caused a significant dip in travel for a while, but travel's pretty much back to pre-pandemic levels at this point. And forecasts like this one show that there are still going to be significant increases in the demand for pilots over the next several years. So by 2029, they forecast 484,000 active pilots worldwide. That's going to require an additional 45,000 business jet pilots and 219,000 airline pilots. This need, it takes into account both industry growth, as well as we also have to replace a large number of retiring pilots. So for those of you who aren't aware, pilots are forced to retire at age 65. So at this point in time, we do have a large group of pilots that are retiring, and we need to replace them as well. And so if we move to the next slide, that means a total worldwide demand for 264,000 new pilots over the next, so this will be remaining 5 years, with 65,000 new pilots needed in North America alone. This is a huge number. And so if we click forward one more time, despite what we saw through the pandemic, which is probably not something anyone wants to remember. But despite that, the long-term commercial aviation outlook remains quite strong. If you do want to check out the demand outlook in more detail, you can visit the link shown below. That's the CAE website URL at the bottom there. Or Google CAE Pilot Demand Outlook 2020, and you can have a closer look at it. So I will pass the mic back to Sydney now, who's going to introduce some of the exciting opportunities that our IATPL graduates have access to.
Yeah, okay. Thank you guys. Thank you, AeroCourse, for just kind of explaining more about the IATPL program. And again, to all the participants, I know there's a lot of information. It can be very overwhelming, but I'm always here to help. My contact information is going to be on the last slide. So if you have any questions that aren't addressed in this presentation, please feel free to give me a call or send me an email. I'm definitely happy to help clarify any questions you might have, as well as just help you through the admission process, whether it's self-paced or our IATPL or college program. Okay, so as Jessica was saying, I'm going to talk about some pathways programs, some opportunities that our IATPL graduates specifically have access to. So first being our Jazz Pathways program. So this is a program we have in partnership with Jazz Airline, which is a subsidy of Air Canada. So graduates in our IATPL program that have an 80% average on Transport Canada exams, meaning our written exams from Transport Canada as well as our flight exams. If you have an 80% average on all of those exams, you meet the criteria for an interview for a Jazz First Officer interview position. So there's potential to hire a graduate with as little as 250 hours. So essentially directly upon graduation, there's potential for you to enter Jazz Pathways as a first officer. They also offer 2 IATPL graduates with awards plus interviews. So that's a really exciting thing that our IATPL graduates are really working towards. It's a very unique opportunity that isn't offered to all flight training schools. So it's a very exciting part of the IATPL program and gives you really a foot in the door and an opportunity for an airline interview with very minimal hours. So as I mentioned, there is 2 awards that Jazz presents at our Wings graduation ceremony, which is our graduation for all of our flight training programs, whether it's a professional or a non-professional program. So they present the award for professionalism as well as a professionalism and diversity award. So they're really trying to diversify who they're giving these opportunities to. And that decision is made not only by the Brampton Flight Centre review committee, but as well as Jazz. So you would get more information about how to apply to that further on into your IATPL program, but we also have information on our website under the Career Pathways section. Moving on, we also have a partnership with the Porter Airlines, which is called our Destination Porter program. So again, graduates of our IATPL program can be accepted into our Destination Porter program, which is essentially a mentorship program. So it's not necessarily offering an interview upon graduation. However, it is offering an opportunity to be paired up with a Porter airline pilot who will act as a mentor for you. So they will give guidance on to, how to build your hours, what kind of steps you need to take in order to get that first step of a career at Porter. And once you've accumulated a minimum of 500 hours, you might get the opportunity to do an interview at Porter Airlines for a first officer position. And as Sean said earlier in the presentation, once you've passed through that interview round, you'd also get an opportunity to do a simulator evaluation at usually around 750 hours. So these numbers can vary year to year. It does depend on what the industry is kind of doing and what Porter's need or Jazz's needs are for pilots at the time that you're applying. But regardless of the hour requirements, they are usually offering these interview and mentorship programs to our IATPL students. And Porter actually does present a scholarship award at the Wings ceremony. And again, this is called the Porter Star Award. And the unique thing about this Porter Award is it's actually peer nominated. So it's all of the classmates nominating each other to, nominate someone who's been a very help in the program, maybe someone who did a lot of mentoring, a lot of guiding, someone who has great leadership skills. So it's not necessarily a decision made by Brampton Flight Centre or by Porter. It's all made by your classmates, which is a really great opportunity. So just moving into some final points here before we get into some question and answers. I'm just going to talk briefly about the application process. So you would apply to our website directly under the red Fly With Us tab. So for our IATPL, it's under, before I get into the actual application process, I did want to outline, in the past, we have accepted international students to all of our flight training programs. However, currently we're unable to accept international students. So we are awaiting further guidance from the government on the status of 2026 international student admissions, and we'll share updates to our website as soon as those become available. So that being said, if you're wishing to apply to our IATPL or our college programs, you're going to apply directly on our website, which is bramptonflightcentre.com, under the red Fly With Us tab. So you're going to apply for the IATPL under the IATPL program admission qualifications, and the college under the college program admission information sections. To apply to the program, it's $100 plus tax, so $113 total. And you'd submit a handful of documents to us. And again, these are all online through our website. So that's going to be your Transport Canada Aviation Medical that Mohammed talked about at the beginning of the presentation. If you don't have the medical certificate in hand, as we know it takes several months for them to process this, you need to at least upload evidence that you've completed the appointment. So perhaps a receipt from your civil aviation medical examiner, or even the email that Transport Canada sends to you letting you know that they've received your application and they're reviewing it. You're also going to submit your transcript from your high school or your college or university education. So those applying without any college or university education do need to show that they've done a grade 12 math and a grade 12 physics credit. However, these math and physics credits are not required if you have a degree or diploma. Even if you're a mature candidate applying with several years of work experience, we need to either see a college diploma, a university degree, or at a minimum, the grade 12 math and physics credits. So if you don't have those physics and math credits, you can complete them on an online course, and I'd be happy to send anyone any information about those online courses that you can complete to meet these admission criteria if you want to just send me an email after the presentation. In addition to your medical and your transcript, you're also going to upload 2 letters of reference. So these are professional reference letters for a program applicant, someone who knows you in a professional capacity, whether that's a high school teacher, a college or university professor, or even maybe a manager at work, someone who knows you in a professional sense and can kind of vouch for why you'd be a good fit for such a structured, intensive program. We also ask that you upload your current resume. Just tells us a little bit about yourself, what kind of experience you have, aviation related or not. It just gives a good background on our candidates. And we're also looking for a 2 or 3 page narrative. And my advice to any applicant for this program is spend some time on this narrative. It gives our admission committee a really good sense of what kind of student you're going to be in the program, your level of commitment, what type of flying you would like to do throughout your career, what excites you about this program or flying in general. So I would recommend spending some good time on that because, like I said, it gives us a really good background about yourself as a person before we even invite you in for an interview. And finally, as Mohammed was talking about at the beginning of the presentation, we also require that you do an introductory flight, so 0.5 hours or 30 minutes of an introductory flight. And this is just to make sure that everyone applying to the program feels comfortable being in a small aircraft. You feel excited about it. It's not something that you're, incredibly afraid of and aren't going to be comfortable with when it comes time to actually start the program. So you can do your intro flight with Brampton Flight Centre. However, it's not a requirement to do it at Brampton. So if you live closer to another flight school, or you've maybe done one in the past out of the province or out of our local area, you're definitely welcome to upload evidence of that. We just need to see that it was actually completed through a flight school. And so finally, once we receive all these documents from you, we will invite you in for an entrance interview and an entrance quiz, as long as you meet all of our admission criteria. So once I receive all of your documents, I'm going to review them with the admissions committee. And supposing you meet all of our criteria, I will invite you in for an interview via email. So make sure when you apply, you're checking the email that you applied with. And the quiz that you're going to be invited to complete assesses basic math, English comprehension, and Canadian geography understanding. So it's a pretty simple quiz, mainly looking at your mental math skills. You're not allowed to use any phones, any calculators, any aids. So again, really looking at your mental math skills and how you'd be a good fit for the student as a student in the program. And the dates for the applications. So we'll accept applications starting January 2nd of 2026, and we'll accept them for about 2.5 months. So January, February, up until about mid-March of 2026. And we'll do admission interviews and quizzes on a rolling basis. So as soon as we start getting applications, we'll begin the interview process. And I'm going to just hand it over to Kathy for one last slide, who is going to talk about the costs and the financing options for our programs here.
Okay, so we've had lots of questions in the chat room about costs. So just to review, the college program is $79,000. The IATPL is $101. This is without tax. And we put a note here just saying that these are estimates. It's the amount of training that can vary by student. The one thing is flight training is not hourly based, it's skill based. Some students catch on really quick, others may struggle with something and it could cost you a little bit more. We are not OSAP eligible. And another big topic in the chat was how to pay for the program. So some of you do have RESPs, which is the Registered Education Savings Plan, sorry. There's also educational lines of credit. Some students have to get a loan with maybe a parent or a guardian. And then there are some scholarships on our website, and those are unfortunately while you're in the program as opposed to prior to starting. Okay, and just another little recap here for you. Our program will start on July 2nd, 2026. Applications open January 2nd to March 15th. We will take 30 students, and we typically see an average of 75 to 80 applications. And because we do have a small rate or a small group of students, we're able to support them, and we have a high graduation rate. So if we do lose students, most of the time it's due to finances, and that's why we ask people to put together a plan before they apply. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. And I just wanted to point out before I go to our kind of closing Q&A session here, on this slide here is our AeroCourse instructor, Francis, with one of our graduates or IATPL graduates, Damon Crane, and they actually got to work together as a captain and first officer at Sunwing. So just kind of highlights the career trajectory of some of our program graduates, and it's just a nice recap of our program. So that being said, that closes our presentation today. I will leave my contact info up here for everyone to see. So again, my name is Sydney. I oversee the IATPL and college programs that Brampton Flight Centre offers. My email is there. It's admissions@bramfly, or you can call me at extension 248. If you're more interested in our self-paced program, you can contact my colleague Rita. She can be reached at info@bramfly or extension 228. So if there's any questions or any clarification you'd like from the seminar tonight, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to kind of shed any more light that I can on any of the questions you might have. And I just wanted to say before we close our presentation, thank you everyone for your time. As Kathy said at the beginning, I know you have a lot of options for flight training in this day and age, and we appreciate everyone's time and dedication and willingness to kind of learn more about what Brampton has to offer. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you to our presenters for your time this evening.